right. Well, welcome everyone. It's what is today? Tuesday, March 5th. And so sorry, somebody. We're going to have a little bit of a fun half hour. My goal is a half hour. It might be 40 minutes, but I'm going to do my best to keep it as brief as possible. In person, these events take a little over an hour, but that's because you're visiting and you're passing out things. And so this should be fairly quick. So before we got started, Linda, I asked everybody who has made sourdough bread before, and I know you have. Yes. Linda's in Colorado. We're all over the place here. We're in many states. I should have asked that up front. Everybody say where they're from, if you don't mind. If you don't mind hearing. What, just you can say your city or your state. Where are you from?
Colorado?
Colorado.
Arizona.
Arizona.
Statesville, North Carolina.
Fayetteville, North Carolina. Marianne?
Ohio.
Ohio. Awesome.
Yay, Buckeye. Another Buckeye. That's good.
New Mexico for me.
New Mexico.
Alabama.
Wow.
Yay, Alabama. And Marianne?
Texas.
Ah, there's a Texas girl.
Hey, I'm a Texan by birthright, but I live outside of Atlanta, Georgia.
Georgia. Look at all these states. That's so cool. And B, I know where you're from. You can tell us where you're from if you can speak. If not, it's okay. She's on mute, so maybe not. Hi, Christy.
Hi, Mimi.
We're just sharing where we're from.
Oh, wonderful. I'm from Cape Cod, Massachusetts.
Wow.
I know Mimi through my husband.
So I just wanted to demonstrate where there are a lot of states. Everyone's from a different state so far. So different places. Okay, so we're going to get started. And the first thing I'm doing is introduce myself because I don't know everybody here. I'm Mimi Blankenship, and I have been with Juice Plus for 18 years. But what I love is teaching people facts about gut health. And that's what we're going to work on today. This is a gut health and sourdough workshop. So why do I do this? Because I have learned, and you may know this too, but I love to share these facts. Gut health influences all the rest of our health. So if our gut is in a good place, most of the rest of our health, especially brain health, and brain health is outpacing heart disease. Heart disease is taking a second to all kinds of brain issues. So gut health is a good place to start with having healthy brain as well. And as we age, we really want to pay attention to that. All right. So, and I also believe if you understand the why behind it, you'll be somebody that'll be a believer in sourdough bread, but just eating healthier in general and maybe making a few changes. So let's talk about the importance of it and some stats. So there are several ways to improve your gut health, and I'm going to show you how to make a loaf of bread, but we're going to talk about other ways to add good things. Does anybody know where prebiotics come from? Does anybody want to jump in? You're welcome to
Pre
share.
or pro?
Prebiotics. Do you
Pre.
know prebiotics? Okay. Anybody want to share? Okay. Prebiotics are what we call the good bacteria in your gut. Probiotics are also in your gut, and that's good for you too. But prebiotics are what feeds the good bacteria. So we want to eat prebiotics. And an interesting fact that I actually just read this today as I was prepping some notes. Sourdough bread has probiotics and prebiotics, but when you bake the bread, the probiotics cannot survive. So prebiotics are what's left, and they are the most important because when we feed the good bacteria, we have more growth of the billions of good bacteria. But when we feed our bad bacteria, that's what ends up being prevalent. So that's why prebiotics are important. And where do you find prebiotics? Fruits, vegetables, especially bananas, greens, artichokes, There's more, but there's some interesting places where prebiotics come from. And a lot of what's in Juice Plus is prebiotic loaded. Okay, so let's go and look at a couple other facts. Did you know that eating a variety of healthy foods helps your digestive system work better? So if you're like me, it's kind of hard to eat a variety every day. We tend to stick to the same 5 or 6 fruits and vegetables, and that is just across the board. It's hard to be adventurous and try new things. And so why is this important to our gut? Well, because our gut needs those prebiotics and those fruits and vegetables, because there are 2 things that are made in our gut, 2 very important things. One is a hormone and one is a system. Does anybody know the answer to that? Or anything? Do you have a guess? You can make a guess. What hormone is made in our gut?
Hmm.
Oh no, I'm making you think. Oh no. Anybody? Going? Okay, Jen, looks like she's gonna. Yep. Yes. I'm sorry, say it again.
Serotonin.
Serotonin. Yes, serotonin is made in our gut. Good job.
Thank you. Do I get a prize?
And what else is made in our gut is our immune system. So we want a strong immune system. We have to feed our gut all those healthy things. So, all right, let's look at one more question here. Actually, I have a couple more. What percentage of the food that we buy today didn't even exist 200 years ago or 100 years ago?
80%.
That's right. That's right. So when you go to the grocery store, somebody did their homework. Roger did his homework. You go to the grocery store, 80% of what we see in the grocery store wasn't even there.
Invented.
It wasn't
Yeah.
even invented. Exactly. So also, I want to point out that we can eat all the nutrients, all the vitamins, but they are not absorbed if we don't have enough omegas in our body. So that's one of the reasons, there are many, why omegas are super important, because we can't absorb the fat soluble vitamins, which are vitamin A, D, E, and K. So you want to be sure you're getting omegas in your body. Okay, so what percentage of Americans are omega deficient?
Deficient?
There was a bigger number.
It's
can't remember,
90.
but it's a bigger
I'll
number.
just jump to it. It's 98%.
Yeah.
98% of us don't get enough omega. So where do omegas come from?
Fish?
Fish, yeah.
Yep, fish. And there's another source too. And it's algae. Algae is actually where fish get it. You know, they're vegetarians. They eat algae. So when they eat algae, they become omega-3, which is the biggest one, most important. There's others as well. Okay, so let me ask you another question. I may have already given this one away, so maybe some people can answer this. What do you think is the #1 way to improve your gut health?
Eat more fruits and veggies.
There you go. There you go. Thank you, Carol. Okay, so do you know how many servings we're supposed to have? What is it currently? You know, it changes. So currently, how many servings of fruits and vegetables should we have every day?
Are you supposed to have, you mean?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I
That
want
was-
to, I want to say 5 to 7.
That's very
4 to
good.
6.
Yep,
Sure.
that's right. But did you know that if you're dealing with a chronic disease, or if a woman is pregnant, or a nursing mom especially, anything unusual, or if you're an athlete, so you're burning more calories, it's 10 of each or more. And some even say upwards of that if they're elite athletes. How is that going to happen? So we all know it's hard to do. Okay, so let me ask you this, a fun question. What fruit or veggie do you dislike? Come on, I know there's some out there. Me, it's lima beans. Yuck.
That was my wife. She just said that as she went out of the room. Lima beans. I'm not a big broccoli fan either. No.
Okay.
but I did have some for supper. But I did eat some.
Brussels sprouts, I kind of like them and kind of don't.
Okay. Yeah, I get that. They kind of
Peas.
smell.
Peas, I don't like peas.
Peas, you don't like peas?
No.
Okay. Anybody else? Is
I
there
kind
a
of like them
no.
all.
Sorry?
I said I pretty much like them all.
Okay, cool. That's
I'd
cool.
I'd
That's-
say maybe one of my least favorite is cauliflower,
Yeah.
depending on how it's prepared.
Hmm.
Yeah.
The cruciferous ones, which of course, those would be the ones that are probably really important because of the fiber, but that's common, I think, to feel that way. Okay, so right now I want to share with you briefly a little bit about my story and why I love Juice Plus. So Juice Plus is a way to fill in the gaps and to add the fruits and vegetables in your diet every day, whether you have a good day or a bad day. And it comes in capsules, which are right behind me. I can show them later, or you can do the gummies, which are delicious. But what I really love is that not only did it just make sense to me, but I found out that there's a lot of research behind it. Like to date, I think it's 48 published studies in medical journals showing what it's doing for every system in the body, 6 of them on the immune system. So it's really backed by science. There's a couple of copycats out there, which you all have probably seen or heard about, or someone's mentioned to you, but it's not the same thing. And I love the fact that we really don't market that much. We just basically share it one-on-one, person to person, or in events like this. So the children's program, which is called Healthy Starts, you can sponsor a child. It doesn't have to be your child, or it doesn't be your grandchild. It could be your niece or nephew or grandniece or nephew, whatever, and you can get a free order for them, either capsules or gummies, either one, and you can try it that way. And right now there's a great special going on that with the fruit, vegetable, berry, and omega, or just the fruit and vegetable and berry blends, you get 20 free shakes to try, which are delicious, and a great breakfast too. So Matt and I started taking Juice Plus actually 20 years ago, and we've really noticed changes in our cravings, and not getting sick as often, getting well faster. So it's been a really great thing. And if you want more information about it, you can reach out to me or whoever has shared that with you. And I just want to be sure everyone here knows about it, because it really has made a big difference for us in our lives. So I love being able to share that part. All right, so now what I want to do is talk to you a little bit more about sourdough bread and what the benefits are. So did you know that not only we talked about prebiotics and probiotics, but did you know too that there's fiber and protein in this bread? That's really important, because now some people are gluten intolerant, and there is gluten-free sourdough bread, but I have to tell you, in my experience, it's not as good. It's just not as good as the regular. And why is it okay? Because the flour, the wild yeast, which I'm going to show you here in a second, is what eats up the gluten in the flour, in the bread. And so you end up with something almost gluten-free. So unless someone is Crohn's or IBS or has a serious condition, and I've seen very few of those that are that serious. I've seen people even with Crohn's that could eat sourdough bread. And with all the benefits that you get from it, it's a really good, healthy thing to eat. So if your thought was, this is just making bread, it's totally different than regular bread. And it's super healthy. Have you ever been to Europe and you thought, I can eat all the pasta and bread I want, and I never get a stomach ache, or I never feel bad? Because they don't process their flour the same way that most flour in the US is processed. So it's being careful with your flour. And I'm going to show you a little bit more about that too. So here we go. I happen to like King Arthur. There's other brands. This is bread flour, and it even says on it proudly 12.7% gluten forming protein. And why is that okay? Because of our starter or mother. I'm going to tilt this so y'all can see my kitchen a little bit better. Mostly you see me. This is the all-purpose, and that's the one I used. The all-purpose King Arthur is also great. This one, you know, when I first got started, I leaned towards the blue one, the bread flour, because it has more self-rising properties. So if you're struggling at all, or you're just like, I just want to be sure it comes out right, I'm going to recommend using this one. If you have this one, it's still fine. It'll be fine. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you what it looks like. This is a quart-sized jar. And what's in here is, it's a mother. So what is a mother? It's flour and water that I mixed, pour off some and add more. And I can send you instructions later if you don't have those. Now, this one's kind of watery because it's been sitting there, so it's not active. But what I wanted to show you is that we want to keep it out on the countertop if we're going to make bread. We want to allow it to get air to it. That's what grows the wild yeast. So this is just a simple coffee filter. You can use a paper towel. Some people use cheesecloth. Just don't use anything airtight like plastic. Just be sure you're using something that breathes. And look, mine even has a hole in it, but I'm still using it because I want air in there. Okay, so what I did was I poured off some from this big jar to the little jar. You can use the same size jars if you have this, it's fine. I just use a different size that tells me this is my starter. Okay, so it's easy to go on Amazon or a lot of Walmart, and some grocery stores carry these jars. Now, you see that silver, that lid there, you don't want that. You don't want that on there because it prevents it from breathing. So you remove this, and now you would pour in your starter, which is the flour and water that's grown on your countertop. And then you would I use coffee filters, and that's just my style. And then you cover it like that and put the ring back on. And what that does is it allows it to breathe. Now, when you're going to bake your bread, you're going to leave it out on your countertop. When you're not baking, you just put that in the fridge. It'll last for up to 6 months. And then some people say, well, I don't know what starter to use. Do I have to grow my own? And I would say there's a lot of choices. I have this dehydrated starter. It looks like crackers in here. And it's just starter that I wasn't using. Mother and star is pretty much the same thing. One's fed and one's not. So this is a mother, and I would just pour it out and let it dry. I poured it on a baking sheet on parchment paper and let it dry out. And this is what this is. So what's great about this is it's preserved and it's fine. Nothing's going to happen to it. And you can just add water to it and rehydrate it and start going. This one is 103 years old. So I'm told. I wouldn't know. I didn't keep track, but so older ones are supposed to have more tanginess. You can go to Amazon and buy one too, if you want to. It's up to you. And if you want one from me, you just let me know and I'll send you one. I can do that. Okay. So now I want to show you a baked loaf. I had to cut last night, but so I made this one last night. You can score them and make them cute and pretty. This one I did not. Maybe I did score it a little bit, but I wanted you to see the inside. So that's what it should look like. See those holes in there? Kind of looks light, and it is. It's light and fluffy. So, and you don't even want to store it in an airtight container. It'll last 4 or 5 days out in your kitchen. But if you have gnats or whatever flying around, I would cover it with something, and even a tea towel works. But I got these little brown bags at the store, and I just chip clip it on there. Nothing's going to happen to it. Air is still getting to it. Okay. Another option. This one I'm going to bake. My oven's about ready. This one, okay, you see the color? It's kind of brownish. Can you all see that? Okay, so what I did was, and I'll send you the recipe. It's 4 ingredients. It's only 4 ingredients. And you use 4 cups of flour. The flours I showed you, you're going to use 4 cups. Now, I wouldn't suggest doing this for your first loaf, but I got this organic rye flour. It's also King Arthur. So I did 3 cups of of this flour, the all-purpose, and 1 cup of this. Why'd I do that? Because any kind of wheat or rye flour is going to be heavier, and you aren't going to end up with that light bread that it's so delicious when it's fluffy. So that's another step, but you're welcome to try it. I mean, a lot of people do different things. It's fun. So this one, I just wanted you to see the color because it's not really white. It's kind of a light brown because it's going to be a rye loaf. Okay, so what do you put in? I'm not going to actually mix it up, but I'm going to share with you what I use. This is sea salt. It's a tablespoon of sea salt and 2 cups of filtered water and a 1/4 cup of your starter, which I'm kind of generous with. I usually go a little bit over that, to be honest, just because I want plenty of it. I like the tangier bread. If you like it tangier, you're going to do more of the pulls and tucks, and you're going to use the more starter as well. Okay, that's it. The 4 ingredients are 2 cups of filtered water, 1 tablespoon of sea salt, 1/4 cup of starter that's fed, active, and bubbly. I need to show you that. So, this one's been sitting out today and it's not looking so bubbly. Let me see. No, that one. Well, it's not quite as, it's not. So it's not, it should be bubblier, but that's because it's been sitting out all day. You can tell when it's ready because it'll be bubbly, and depending on your humidity, it will actually grow. So some people even mark it, like say if it starts here, they'll take a felt marker and mark it, and then by a couple hours or more, it'll be up here. So it can double in height and size. So you really have a great starter going if it's growing like that. But it doesn't necessarily grow. They don't all grow like that. They're still, as long as they're bubbly and to the smell, they smell like yeast, they're good. They're good to go. Okay, so now I want to show you the Dutch oven. So this is what I bake mine in. And I'm trying to keep this super simple. There's always choices almost at every step of what to do. But this is an inexpensive Dutch oven. And the reason I got this, I got it on Amazon for 40 bucks because I have a nice one. I didn't want to ruin it because my oven right now is at 450 degrees. So I think if I kept baking bread regularly, I'd probably ruin my good Dutch oven. So, and you can use any kind of pot or pan you want. You don't have to have a Dutch oven, but I kind of like the size of this one. Let me see. In case somebody's going to ask me what size is it. 4.7 liters, 5 quarts. 5 quarts, okay. The other thing that you have to do is use parchment paper. So this one is unbleached compostable parchment. It's Reynolds. And someone told me get this one because it doesn't stick, because you don't want your bread to stick to the parchment paper. It's happened to me. Trust me, every mistake has happened to me. So sorry, that was loud. So now I'm putting the parchment paper down inside here. I'm gonna tilt this again. And my oven is ready. So I'm gonna take this dough, and you can watch me get really messy now. I'm gonna stick my hand in here and pull it off. But I also want to tell you, when you're tugging and tucking, you're going to be reaching in and pulling it around. And I'm going to tell you more about that after I get this going. So it's going in here, trying to make it all land right on the parchment paper. Does anybody have any questions? You can ask me questions right now if you want.
Oh, I have a question, Mimi.
Mhm.
Do you ever put any butter under the parchment, like on the pan, between the pan and the parchment paper?
I'm afraid at this, you can do that at some point, but I wouldn't put butter in there to bake it because it'll burn.
Yeah, 450. Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
What you actually can do, sorry, I'm walking away to wash my hands off.
Mm-hmm.
What you can do is, and I do this a lot, is I'll put about 4 ice cubes underneath between the parchment paper and the pan.
Okay.
That creates a steam, which makes it bake even fluffier and bigger. And
Oh,
we
nice.
like, yeah, we like it when it's fluffy. So I'm gonna do that actually right now. I'm gonna throw in. I'm gonna grab a handful of ice cubes and
Mhm.
I'm going to stick them in here between the parchment paper and the pan.
Okay.
Now I'm gonna put the lid on and I'm gonna bake it for 35 minutes at 450 degrees, like this. Now everyone's oven is different, so go with this, and then if it doesn't work, and I'll send anyone the recipe, I can do that. If this doesn't work for you, then you check your temperature of your oven. Sometimes it'll say 450, but if you put a thermometer in there, you'll find out the true temperature. So, and that's just a tip. So now what I'm going to do is, and I'll show you because you can see my oven, I think. Remove those. Okay, so now, and sometimes I put the pan in the oven for 20 or 30 minutes before and get it super hot before I put the parchment paper in and the dough. But I just did them tonight. It doesn't matter. You don't have to. So now I'm putting that in there and I'm gonna set my timer for 35 minutes. And then at 35 minutes, I will take the lid off. And when I take the lid off, I'll bake it another 15. That's just the magic number. And it comes out with this nice brown loaf. This is another loaf I made. Let me show you this one. And Christy, I know you're a baker, so I think you would probably do. See that nice brown look?
Mhm.
That I like the way it looks like that. I think that's and I froze this one. I just thought it out. So if you feel like baking a few, you can do it and freeze them and then have them for when you need them. The other thing I did was I tried this as an experiment. I got out a muffin tin. I did put a little bit of olive oil, avocado oil, whatever I had on hand in each little 12, cupcake pan. And then I divided the dough up into 12 balls and threw them into each of those. It really turned out very well. It's kind of hard to ruin it. It's pretty resilient if if your starter is good, your temperature is good, you'll probably end up with a decent loaf of bread. But I know I'd love to answer any questions as far as tips along the way. And I'm going to share with you anyone that doesn't have it, the recipe. I will send that to you so everyone will have the
Hey,
recipe.
Meme. Hey, how are you? It's Diane. I have a question. I have a friend who did her starter and she did bread flour and it turned into just I do the regular organic bleach flour, the King Arthur, or I do Bob's, but she did bread flour and it turned into soup. It never grew, it just turned watery.
Okay, that wasn't the bread flour. That's not because you can do a starter with bread flour. Was she making her own mother?
Here's her mother. She just brought it back to me. It's dead. It's like a big thing of liquid soup.
It's probably not dead. What I would do, this is a good example. As long as there's no mold on it.
There's none.
Okay, I would pour off a 1/4 cup of that into a clean jar.
Yeah.
Then I would feed it a 1/4 cup of flour and be sure, guys, I don't know if I emphasize this, filtered water.
Right.
Any chlorine in your tap water will kill the wild bacteria.
Did you do filtered water?
My mountain oil.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think you could save that one just by
work on
it off and feeding it.
Yeah, and I will tell everybody, don't be discouraged. I made mine on Sunday night and it was late and I fell asleep and my poor bread stayed in the oven too long. But I immediately took it out and the top was burnt. But because it was warm, I just cut the top off and it was such a thin layer that was burnt and sliced it up and my bread was fine. So like you said, it's kind of indestructible. I even burn it and it was good because I got rid of the burnt part and just saved it and I toast it and eat it every morning. So it, and then I don't know if anybody wanted to know what I cook is that Lodge cast iron, the Lodge 5 quarts. That's what I put mine in, but it seems about the same. So
That's good. That's good to know. I do in Santa Fe, I have a cast iron Dutch oven. That's what I use there. But the parchment paper, that can be tricky. I did get some parchment paper that my bread stuck to, and I was so upset. I'd spent all this time making it and I had to try and peel off the parchment paper, but which I did. I ended up cutting some off with a knife. So then I started paying attention and researching what is the best parchment paper, and it was this Reynolds. I think I showed it to you. Here, I'll show it to you again. I think I got it at Target. I mean, Reynolds parchment paper, and you can use parchment paper for so many things. So, I'm trying to think if I've left anything out. I think I'm going to
Could I
stop
have-
recording.
I
So
have a
we,
question, Mimi. In
Yeah.
fact, I have a couple of questions.
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I've made several loaves of really, really delicious bread. So after the first two were failures, I thought I'd never do it again, but now I'm making it really regularly. But I have a couple of questions. So the first one is my mother. Well, one thing, I've never used filtered water. I've just used tap water. So maybe my water doesn't have chlorine in it. I don't know. But
Yeah, you do live in paradise there. So it could be.
So with the mother, after a while, it gets kind of crusty, and junk kind of forms on it. Should you take it and put it in a clean jar and just, I mean, does that matter if it's getting kind of crusty and goopy looking?
No. No, and that's another great question. Thank you, Linda. That it doesn't matter. Now, I've had there's like a liquid that can form on the top and it looks disgusting. It can be gray, it can be red, it can be black, and you think, oh no, it's dead. And that can happen in the refrigerator with the mother. But no, that's called hooch. Don't like the name, but that's what it's called. The hooch is actually filled with probiotics and prebiotics. So if you're not totally grossed out, you just mix it on into your mother and keep it because you'll have a really healthy loaf of bread. But
Yeah.
I one formed that crusty thing on top too, Linda, and I could actually peel it off. So I did. And then always you could just pour off what you have there into another clean jar and feed that, and you'll probably get a lot of activity going.
Mimi,
Well,
for oh, sorry. I was gonna say I didn't even stir it. As soon as I took the lid off to start cooking it, it just bubbled and absorbed it all right back in. It was very interesting. You could watch the whole thing. It was like a volcano going up and it was just taking all the liquid back into the dough. So.
Wow. Well, this recipe, I love it because it's 4 ingredients. And yes, it's a lot of time. And I'm going to tell you the timeline, but you don't have to do everything at once. And if you have patience with it, you'll be so proud of yourself. But what I normally do is if I'm going to make a loaf of bread, I will start feeding my starter that day. And so, like I said, I'll generally take some, pour it off. So I just have a small amount. And then I feed it. It's a 1/4 cup of flour and a 1/4 cup of filtered water. And then I put that little coffee filter back on top and put the ring back on and let it sit for at least 2 hours so that it has a chance to grow and activate. So that wild yeast is building and growing. And then that evening, I'll just throw my ingredients in the bowl, pour my start in, mix it up, cover it with a tea towel. And you want to just sprinkle some water on your tea towel because the tea towel keeps it damp and covered from anything that's flying around in your house, maybe. But I just do that overnight. So it gets a good 12 hours of rest. That's when it's really growing and building. And in the morning, when you look at it, it's probably gonna be kind of smooth and shiny, maybe not really big, but just smooth and shiny. And then you come in and you just reach under it and pull it, stretch it, and tuck it. And you just turn the bowl and do that like 4 or 5 times. And then cover it with your tea towel, go another 1.5 to 2 hours, and do that 4 to 6 times, 4 to 6 times during the day. And by late afternoon or that evening, your dough is going to be risen really pretty. In fact, mine usually hits the tea towel. And then you can pop your oven on, heat it up, and put it in there like I showed you, and bake bread that evening. So we're really talking about 24 hours total from feeding your start to baking it.
Mimi, I've done mine almost just the opposite. Let my starter kind of sit overnight. And then the next morning I mix it all up and I start doing the tugging and stuff. And I'll do a few tugs during the day. And then at night, then I let it sit overnight. And in the morning, it's just really, really big and pretty. And then I gather it all up again, and that's when I bake it. So I've done mine kind of the opposite of you.
Well, it doesn't matter. That works too. And you don't want it to be under 12 hours and you don't want it to be more than 36 because after 36, it's just kind of implode and lose those beautiful prebiotics that you want. So the way Linda does it is fine too. It works. Just keep it within that time frame.
I have a question, Mimi.
Is-
And, the last time I did this, I put the tea towel on, and I don't know whether it was too moist, but because we're in an area like Santa Fe, by the time I put the dough down and rested it with the tea towel, the next morning I got up, the towel was dry, and there was like a crust, a hard surface formed on the dough.
That's okay.
Yeah?
I'll tell you another option too, is instead of the tea towel, you can get just one of those, almost like a hotel shower cap. That's what I tend to use. And that's worked fine too.
To keep it moisture?
Yes, it does, because it doesn't dry out. You may even have a little bit of, perspiration, if you will, on the top of the.
Okay.
I wanted to show you something else. This is called a Banneton bowl. It's made of bamboo, another Amazon purchase. But have you seen the really pretty ones? My daughter was on here for a minute and she's gone. But she makes all of hers in the Banneton bowl. So this is another option, but you have to flour it really well so it will not stick. And then that top thing Lynn was talking about, it comes with that cover too. So you can use that. But if you want to get fancy, it's really pretty. And I'm going to show you a picture of it here if I can find it in a minute. But she uses that now all the time. And
Can I ask why doesn't anybody do this in regular bread loaf pans?
You absolutely can. You can, I told you about the rolls. Let me show you because I meant to get them out. I forgot to get them out, but let me show you. Can put them in loaf pans and slice them for bread. That's what I'm going to use that rye bread I made with. Just slice it for sandwiches. But I wanted to show you. These are rolls that I made. I told you about putting them in the cupcake pan.
Can you pass one through?
It's frozen, so you probably wouldn't like it, but you can get creative, but if you're just starting out, I would say just stick to the simplest thing, because once you have success, then you're going to feel like branching out and try other things. Now, I'm going to show you a couple of tools, and then it's 6:40. Okay. This is called a Dutch whisk, and that's what I use when I'm mixing up my dough. I don't know why it works so well, but the way it is, and everything's on Amazon. And if anybody wants links, I can send links to you. They're not my links. They're just, you can go to Amazon. But this is a great tool for mixing up the dough. It just doesn't get all clumped and stuck together. Another thing is, many of you might remember having a sifter. Maybe your mom had a sifter. Okay, this is just a sieve. Again, it's cheap. I think it was $8. I sift my flour, like I measure a cup when you're putting the 4 cups into the bowl to make the dough. I measure a cup and I dump it in here and I just kind of tap the side and it sifts the flour in. And whether it's true or not, I think it makes it fluffier. So I use that a lot. I always use the Dutch whisk. You can use a spatula. You don't have to run out and buy all this stuff if you don't want it. But I say the main thing is have fun with it. This community is so awesome. And if you have questions, everyone's willing to help and answer questions. I'm going to turn off the recording real quick.